Let's get some more now on those rising tensions at universities across the country, including the pro-Palestinian demonstrators occupying a building at Melbourne University. Dr Elizabeth Strakosch is a lecturer there and a spokesperson for the Jewish Council of Australia. She joins us now from our Brisbane studio. Good morning to you. I'm interested in this unique position you have as a staff member and a spokesperson for the Jewish Council of Australia. In that context, how do you feel about the student occupations that we're seeing happening?
Well, to be honest, I feel quite proud of the students. I believe that they're standing up for what they believe, they're voicing a legitimate political perspective and asking some hard questions of the university around its links to weapons manufacturers like Lockheed Martin, Israeli institutions and other organisations involved in the current mass violence in Gaza. So I believe they're exercising their democratic right to protest, and I support that as both a Jewish person and as a staff member at the university.
We are seeing quite a level of disruption to study. Right now there are students that can't go to class. Are you concerned about that level of disruption, especially if it keeps dragging on?
Well, I acknowledge that there is some disruption occurring. For example, the University of Melbourne students have recently occupied a major building at the University of Melbourne and renamed it Mahmoud's Hall after a Gazan student who was due to be studying at the University of Melbourne this semester. And they're doing that in order to make their demands heard and to get the university to listen. And that's part of a very long tradition of campus protest. Right? The anti-Vietnam War protests, the anti-apartheid protests were very strong on campuses, and they included tactics like occupying buildings. This is part of the lexicon of campus protest. So in the context of the disruptions, classes are continuing. Sometimes they have to be relocated, but we need to balance that against the scale of the mass violence that's occurring and the importance of universities as places of critical inquiry in society.
Yes, and certainly traditionally places of protest as well. The police haven't yet been called into Melbourne University, but the university has been threatening to do that if they continue with their actions. What do you see as a potential impact of police being called in?
I am, and many others are very concerned about the way things seem to be headed. We definitely don't want to end up with scenes like we've seen in the US, where police are violently dismantling these encampments. They're arresting students, they're arresting staff. I believe they even arrested the former chair of the Jewish department at Columbia. That kind of incursion by police is a massive violation of students' rights to both express themselves freely and to assemble politically. And I think it should be something that concerns everyone, because we've seen that the ANU and Deakin have both indicated that they will be calling in police to shut down their encampments. So we're urging the University of Melbourne to hold the line against what we know is quite significant political pressure to shut these encampments down.
I imagine you've been speaking with other staff members at the university. Are any staff worried about going onto campus while these protests are happening and the potential for it to turn violent, given what we're seeing in the US that has unfolded in the US in the past few weeks?
I think there's sort of two different issues. One is the question of anti-Semitism. And yes, I've had very many conversations with other staff members, including Jewish staff members. Some of them feel very supportive of the encampment and quite safe there. I myself have gone to the encampment and been welcomed there. Others feel uncomfortable with it, but my strong opinion is that that's a political discomfort, that's not because there's any racism. These are peaceful encampments. They're being very clear that they won't tolerate any anti-Semitism. And political discomfort with opinions we deeply disagree with is part of life in a democracy. So I certainly know there's a range of opinions amongst other staff. But I think very many staff are very supportive of students' rights, and they're watching very closely, because if there is a crackdown here, then academic freedom for staff members, which is already being threatened, is also next on the line. I should just mention, the second thing is that what really concerns me as a question of safety is that we've seen a lot of right-wing protesters and agitators from outside the university coming into the camp. I've seen footage from 2 nights ago. Bottles were thrown, fire extinguishers were set off. We've seen Avi Yemeni, who's a well-known far-right agitator, coming onto campus trying to escalate the situation. And that is a threat to student safety, and I think the university should be watching that very closely.
Yeah, and as well as keeping a close eye on these protests, how would you like to see the university respond to what these students have been calling for?
I would like to see the university sit down with those students and take them seriously. They have a number of demands that include disclosure, so the university being more open about their actual ties to some of these institutions, which I think are legitimate demands to ask of the university. They also have a particular demand around the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which the Uni of Melbourne was the first to publicly adopt. And this is a very widely critiqued, highly politicised definition of anti-Semitism, which conflates criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. That is official policy of the university. It's having a chilling effect on academic freedom, and I would strongly support the students' call. Many staff are also making the call that we need to repeal that and have a much more robust definition of racism as a whole.
Okay, Dr Elizabeth Strakosch, lecturer at the University of Melbourne and spokesperson for the Jewish Council of Australia, thank you for speaking to the ABC News Channel today.
Thank you so much.